Welcome back to the Dyslexic Maverick. So excited for our guest today, Jamal Waterburn. He has such a fantastic career history and just a really unique story, but one that's unique and I think that a lot of listeners will relate to as well. So, Jamal is a pharmacist, he's a tech consultant, he has his MBA, and he's a podcast host. And he was also diagnosed with autism at the age of 43 after decades of navigating the corporate world undiagnosed and really trying to understand the full picture of his brain. So he has a great story of resilience and grit and going through adversity. And I can't wait to dive into that today. So, whether you're an HR leader or an executive leader managing a team with somebody who may have autism, I think everyone will find a ton of value out of Jamal's story and really digging into how do we support workers and employees and team members and even leaders in the workplace with differently wired brains. So, welcome, Jamal.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. So we met actually on LinkedIn, which is how I meet a lot of people actually, but
Yeah,
I come across the coolest people on LinkedIn.
yeah, it's a great platform. Absolutely.
It really is. And so we just started a conversation. And when you were telling me about your story, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get that story out to the world. It's not all like roses and sunshine, right?
No,
It's been a long road. So would you
yeah.
mind just as we start off talking about your career path and kind of briefly hitting on at least the highlights of the different journeys? You've packed a lot into 47 years
Yeah, I
or more.
have. Yeah, 48, but who's
40.
counting, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I started off my career as a pharmacist. I graduated from pharmacy school in 2001. So 24 years, it's hard to believe it's been that long, but man, yeah, it's been 24 years, over 2 decades. And I was a Sunburst Scholar. That's a minority scholarship. They're mainly in the southeastern region of the US, but for minorities who have interests in physical sciences, it was something that helped me go to college. And so I had to choose a major that was a physical science. It could have been pre med, engineering, and I chose pharmacy. And so I graduated in 2001. But then after graduating, I was really lost and I didn't really know why. Now, in retrospect, I know it's because up to that point, up to graduating at the age of 24, I had structure and purpose in my life. But then once that all went away and it was just going to work, I really struggled with what to do with myself. I know that now with my diagnosis, being 48, having had the experience, but at the time, I really didn't know what that meant or what to do about it. And so I was somewhat aimless. I was looking for purpose, looking for my niche. So I got into retail pharmacy. The older listeners out there may remember Eckerd Drugs. That's my first job out of pharmacy school. I was a community pharmacist there. They were later bought out by CVS. I didn't really use my clinical skills to the fullest as I had hoped. Big shock. It was more about coupons and savings plans and insurance more so than pharmaceutical care. And so I wasn't really feeling fulfilled in that. I started looking for other options within pharmacy. I looked into nuclear pharmacy, that's handling radio pharmaceuticals, which is a whole nother thing. Didn't didn't stick. I tried consulting pharmacy. I live in Florida. You can be licensed to be a consulting pharmacist who handles drug regimens for nursing homes, nursing home care. I found that to be a little, I hate using the word depressing, but it's a difficult atmosphere to be in every day and to stay positive. And so that was not for me either. I did try clinical pharmacy. So I got my doctorate in pharmacy. I'm a PharmD, but that proved to be way too abstract. I like regimented, clearly defined rules, and clinical just was not that. It depends on the person's age, weight, height, what they eat, and all that variance just threw me off, and I didn't care for it. And as luck would have it, I don't remember how exactly, but I was paired with this person. His name was Greg Wesak. And shout out to Greg, wherever you are. I know it was 20 years ago, but thank you so much, sir, because thanks to him, I became a software consultant with his company, ACS Healthcare Solutions, based out of Dearborn, Michigan. And what they did was help me get certified in a little known application called Epic. Epic has now blown up, it's worldwide. But at the time, they were small and trying to get their foot into the inpatient electronic health record world or industry, as you'd have it. Up to that point, they were only ambulatory. So I flew to Wisconsin, where they're headquartered, got my certification. I was sponsored by ACS, thanks to Greg. And yeah, I my first client was Kaiser Permanente out in Southern Cal, and it was such an amazing experience. I got to travel, I had a laptop, I had an expense account, and I was maybe 26, 27 at the time. So all this was really new and exciting. I wasn't confined in a pharmacy with incandescent lights. I was actually out meeting new people. It was amazing, and I loved it, and I just never stopped. And that was what was that? That was around 2004, 2005, and then add to that, I'm meeting other consultants, and they're telling me, "Hey, you can become a 1099 contractor. Let me help you understand what that is." And that's forming an LLC and getting your own clients. You can leverage tools like LinkedIn. LinkedIn was just coming about at that point, and so then I learned, oh, I can be an entrepreneur. And so that added another layer to it. And so I was like, yo, this is my jam. And so I was very excited. And yeah, I finally found something I was good at. It was technical, clearly defined rules, like minded people. I was out and about. I got to travel, see different parts of the country. Sounded great, and the rest, as they say, is history. So that's the quick version. There's a lot more nuance, but I'm gonna allow you to steer the ship, if you will. So
Interesting. So, at what point did you suspect maybe that you had autism, or what led you to even like seeking a diagnosis?
yeah, that's a great question. So I think I always knew I was different. I just didn't know quite how to articulate it. And if you hear pitter patter, that's my youngest son, Roman, who's also on the spectrum. Um,
Ah, okay, cool.
yeah,
Awesome. Maybe he'll
uh,
visit us in the
he
podcast.
might poke. Yeah, who
Yeah, it's
knows?
all
He
good.
just might. But I think I've always known I was different. I just didn't have a label to put on it. But so I think what made me get a formal diagnosis was my son Roman, and just seeing his progression. Kids are just a snapshot of us, but just with no filter, right? And so I saw a lot of myself in him, and I thought, oh, I wonder. And he was diagnosed early, like maybe 3 or 4 years old. And so I'm thinking, I have a lot of these same issues. I wonder. And then I say, nah, I'm fine. Clearly, I went to school, I'm educated, this and that. I couldn't be. I took a break from consulting, and I tried my hand at corporate America, like legit corporate America. And I worked for a pharmaceutical company. I won't say the name. It's on LinkedIn if you want to know what it is. But it was during that time where I really saw the struggles of understanding social cues, nonverbal cues, implied intent, all these untangible things that neurotypical people seem to understand just like that. Whereas for me, I'm like, I'm not sure how to take that. Was that sarcasm? Were they serious? Is there more I need to do? And I'm just in this constant state of what's going on. And so I'm asking a lot of clarifying questions, learning very quickly. I only have two times to ask a question before people get annoyed or wonder what's going on, which I know people, they don't want to admit, but that's simply how it is. We're so busy, there's very little time to help those who don't catch on organically on what's going on or how to help. You're expected to hit the ground running. And if you're not catching up or reading the room, that's too bad. We'll find someone else who can. And so there simply isn't that environment to help support those who are unable to read those nonverbals, or maybe directions that aren't as clear or have a lot of assumption weaved in it. And so it was in this position that I really struggled and found it difficult to understand. Not that I wasn't capable of doing it, but I just needed a lot of clarity. Whereas before, as a software consultant, software, and I know what I need to do, how to do it, the most efficient way to do it. It's much more straightforward. There's no gray, but this role was much more gray. It's much more social. There's a lot more innuendo and nonverbal communication. So anyway, so I really struggled with that, and so I didn't last long, unfortunately. Although I did enjoy the position, I decided it wasn't for me, and so I parted ways and I went back into consulting. And that was right around the time I finished my MBA, and that's where I am today. I'm still consulting now, but I think I'm better for it for having had that experience. It gave me a renewed sense of okay, maybe I'm where I belong, and that's okay.
Thank you for sharing that story because I know you've put it so concisely, but there's probably a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of frustration and a lot of I'm trying and it's not working kind of feelings that we're going through and processing at that same time. Looking back, what were I know you said like kind of like there's a lot of gray. Like for a leader that's, I wonder if so and so on my team may be on the spectrum or maybe autistic and just doesn't know it or we don't know it or they don't feel comfortable sharing. What are some things looking back that you're like, my leader maybe didn't connect the dots, but saw different struggle points that they could maybe look out for?
I think what it falls down to, and this is just my opinion, I can't speak for anyone, but based on what I witnessed and what I saw, it looked to me that there's an assumption that Jamal just isn't trying. I think that was the easiest conclusion for them to jump to because everyone else isn't having a problem. Why are you? And I don't think autism is top of mind with the reason. And like I said, everyone's so busy. Even if autism were the issue, we just really don't have time for that. Oh, that's very inconvenient. Even though I think there are very simple methods to, I'm struggling to remember the word, but to compensate. Like I have on headphones, blocking out auditory noise helps me focus, or allowing me the space to ask those clarifying questions, or giving a bullet pointed summary, or give me constant feedback of how I'm doing. Things you should probably be doing as manager anyway, but it's just reinforced for someone such as myself who values that structure and doesn't like to be left aloof, so to speak. But I think there's just not a lot of awareness for it. Number one, and number two, there's an assumption that if you're autistic, then you must check these boxes. But autism's a spectrum. Now, there's a there's a label autism, which is an umbrella term. So there is some commonality between people who have autism, but there's still individual ways in which that autism is expressed. And so it's already a complicated thing that's further complicated by the fact that no two people express it the same. So I don't think it's fair to expect managers to know or recognize what it is. However, I think once it is recognized and brought to the forefront, I think it is worthwhile to at least give that person the time and the resources they need to succeed, as opposed to saying, I hear you, but you look capable to me, so you need to do better. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think and it's complicated, right? People are complicated. We're all
Yeah.
different. Like every
Right.
single brain is different. Neurotypical,
Yeah.
neurodivergent, doesn't matter, right? And so that's when you're leading people, that's the most complicated part, right? Is that every single person on your team is different. They've all got things going on in the background that you know nothing about, right? Like
Mhm.
there's always challenges with every single one of our lives, right? I don't think anybody just wakes up and everything is good every single day. And then on top of it, you do have differently wired brains, and most of the time people don't even know that they have a differently wired brain. And we're trying to figure it out as individuals and the leaders are too. And I do think the pace of play in corporate right now, just in general, even just with technology, right? Like it is so fast that it
Yeah.
is hard to slow down for the human side of things.
Oh, yeah.
And and just like everything you said, when I go into a company and we start educating people on neurodivergent brains and how to help, every single time they're like, "Nancy, this is just good leadership." And I'm like, "Exactly." There's very few things that don't fall into the "it's good leadership" category.
Right.
It's getting curious about people and asking like, "Hey, like, how can I help you?" Just that one question alone could have potentially changed your trajectory, I would assume, in corporate.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you hit the nail on the head with regards to looking at us as people as opposed to what our resumes are or maybe what a employee performance review has to say. We're very data driven and we look at statistics and numbers and this and that, but it really removes the human aspect. And I think oftentimes if we have a balance of both, because both have value, right? I'm not saying those metrics don't matter, they do, but I think there has to be balance. If we rely too much on one or the other, then our information skewed. And so I think and even when I'm applying for positions, for contracts, and I have to interview with a hiring manager, oftentimes they ask questions that really have nothing to do with what I need to do. I don't know where they get the questions from, but they feel confident that this is what they need to ask. And then I'll get the position. And 6 months later, I'm doing something completely different from what they asked me in the interview. But they'll never admit that. But it just goes to show that the yeah, there needs to be balance, is my point. And I think you're right. Asking questions that draw out that human component, asking the why, what's your passion, what drives you to do XYZ, why did you choose us, why are you here, how can we help? These open-ended questions that force you to give qualitative responses as opposed to quantitative, I think are great. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And it just like you're saying, it just opens up the conversation because we're all busy. And so even ourselves trying to make ourselves into these molds, we catch ourselves doing things that aren't necessarily in our own like wheelhouse or they're not the skill sets that we love to do. And then we're like, oh my gosh, why isn't this working? It's like, wait, hold on, pause. Let's just have a conversation about this and see what feels off. Yeah, like I had a leader once that you would say, help me understand what led you to this, or can you walk me down the path of, like, how you got to that decision? And through that conversation, it opened up, like, my thought process and my pattern to where I got, and then he understood better maybe what I overlooked or missed or whatever it was, but again, it was a conversation. It wasn't like, "Hey, you did this wrong. Why would you have made that choice?" It was more conversational. So, do you see I'm sure you see yourself in your son or vice versa, but then there's probably some differences too. Can you talk just like a little bit about like because like you said, everything's on the spectrum, right? Everybody's still different. So like what are some of the similarities and differences between you and your son?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are three levels of autism spectrum disorder or ASD. When I received my diagnosis, I was diagnosed as ASD level one, which used to be called Asperger's. They've gone away from that title, not sure why, but ASD level one is what I am. So that's high functioning, obviously, right? So I was able to complete college and pay bills and do things on time, things like that. My son, he is ASD level two, and he has more of a developmental delay. For example, he's 8 years old, but he's still not verbal. People out in public may speak to him and say, "Hey, little one, how are you? What's your name?" And he doesn't really give them eye contact or respond. And I just gave up on explaining why that is. I just say, "Oh, thank you very much. He's fine." And we just go about our day. But he may eventually learn the appropriate responses to my name's Roman, thank you, or whatever he should say, right? But he's just not there yet. Same for potty training. There, that took a little bit longer. So he's level two. And then level three, they just need constant care 24/7 and will most likely always require that type of care. My son's not there. He has occupational therapy, which has helped him with his motor skills and hygiene and speaking to one another or speaking to people and all that. There is a lot of room for growth, and he's making progress each and every year. So we think he will have some some level of independence once he's older. That's just going to take him a bit longer when compared to neurotypical children. But that's the difference. Where we are similar is sensory. I like a dimly lit room. I don't like bright light. I don't like a lot of noise. So, crowded rooms, loud talking, loud music, not a fan. Neither is he. I'm cool under pressure. He will flip out. So, there's just no filter with him, but he has yet to learn how to hide it or blend. Same for smells. Strong smells just really distract me. So, no loud perfume, If you're cooking in the kitchen, I'll just close the door, turn on my fan. And he's the same way. So things like that, or even certain fabrics. So, yeah. So like silk, don't like it. Just even saying the word, I don't like it. He's the same way. But yeah, we have a lot of that in common. But that's where it ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's I know textures for so many people. There's like a food texture, a clothing texture.
Ah, yeah, no, I just thought of another one. Yeah, because so he is very limited in what he likes to eat. I was that same way at his age. I would only eat certain things. Like he likes pizza and yogurt. That's it. But that's quite the jump because before it was just animal crackers and something else that had no nutritional value. So we're actually heading now we have protein. So we're getting better.
Better, yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And you were the same way as a child. What do you know what made the switch? Did you force yourself to do it or did you just gradually like it more or
I think what happened is social pressure to fit in. I think I was more keenly aware of social dynamic than maybe both my sons. And social acceptance is important as a kid because you don't want to be by yourself. And so because of that, it gave me an incentive to expand. And that kind of leans into a different topic of masking and how despite my personal proclivity, I do things to make other people feel comfortable just so that I'm not perceived as other. And that can bring on a lot of stress. And so I make it a point to exercise and get plenty of rest because I read a lot of articles about people who were diagnosed later in life with autism, how the amount of stress they're under tends to give them a shorter lifespan, which was sad to read, but I get it because each time you venture out into the world, you have to pretend in a sense, and you have to make others comfortable. Because if I were to do what I feel comfortable doing, it's not going to work. So that constant having to blend in, it wears on you. It may not look like it on the outside, but on the inside, there's a lot of stress. And so I always make it a point to get plenty of rest, eat, exercise, and have alone time, excuse me, to recharge and reset. That's very important. But yeah, so back to your original point. Yeah, for me, it was just wanting to belong, something I still feel a strong longing for is to find community.
Mhm. So interesting. I was talking to a friend who is undiagnosed, but definitely on the she said I'm on the spectrum for sure. And so we were talking about it and she was talking how hard it is for her. She's a business owner, an entrepreneur, for her to have friends and actual friends that like they don't necessarily judge. And she's I always tell new friends, like, I'm a lot, I'm a lot. And of course, that breaks my heart hearing that because that's something we tell ourselves. So it's like, we're a lot. Like, we like preface it with, we know we're a lot. But, and she's like, they always say it's great. And then once the first situation happens and I go too far or I'm embarrassing or I say exactly what's on my mind, they're nowhere to be found. And I just, it's hard. And she's in her late 40s, right? It's not like she's 26 and still trying to like figure out where she fits in life. And so I think it just needs to be talked about more, right? Like even as adults in our mid 40s or 50s, we're still trying to find our group sometimes, right? Like still trying to find our people.
Yeah, finding your people, finding your tribe is a constant struggle. I do have the fortune of having some childhood friends that I still speak to quite regularly, actually. And in fact, two of whom I share the podcast with, RJ Squared, that I mentioned. But even with them, I can only go so far to be my authentic self. I can't go too far. If I go too far, I get what's going on? So with your friend, I definitely understand where she's coming from because she wants to just be herself. And I've actually had a friend from college who just cut me off. And for 4 years, we were like this, always together. And when people referred to one, my name was mentioned or vice versa. But then that kind of just stopped. And I think it's because I was, like your friend said, too much. And in retrospect, I understand that at the time, I didn't know why there was this abrupt, just no response, nothing. But I get it now. And it's too bad he didn't feel he could just say, I love you. I think you're great. It's just spending time with you is draining. And I'm sorry I feel that way, but I need time apart, which probably would have been devastating to hear, quite frankly. But, so yeah, you're right. It is, I guess it is easier just to sever ties. But yeah, that situation taught me, okay, I can't be 100% myself. Maybe I should dial it down to 80 or 70%, which just goes back to the stress because if I'm holding back, I constantly have to remember. And if it's like remembering to have an arm behind your back, you're handicapped in that way. And so to always have to do that each time you walk out that door, you can imagine that'd be difficult. And but I think we don't talk about it enough because on the outside, and just like your friend, she looks successful, she looks happy, right? You don't have money problems. Like, what's the big deal? And because autism is invisible, it doesn't get the same treatment as someone who has a physical disability. That people can see, that they can, rationalize in their head, oh, okay, they deserve extra care. But a neurological issue, it gets a lot less attention because people can't see it. Not only can they not see it, but even when you try to explain it, they don't really understand it. What's funny? I've even tried finding a therapist, and for me, that's been a challenge. I've lost count, maybe 4 or 5 now, who said, I don't think I'm the right therapist for you. I'm going to see if I can help you find someone. And then nothing happens. Because finding a therapist who is not only well versed in autism, but is comfortable doing it, that's also a challenge because unless that therapist also has autism, it's difficult for them to even understand, even with all the training. But yeah, I had that happen to me recently, about a couple of weeks ago, where during the session, like several, like she said it like 4 or 5 times. If you want, you can find another therapist. And I said, I already told you I'm fine, but I'd like to continue. Okay. And then I'm talking. Again, just wanted to remind you, if you want to find another therapist, it's okay. I'm like, okay. Now I'm starting to think there's something. Yeah, it's just par for the course at this point. And I think having this conversation gives people a backstage view, if you will, of what it's like. We may seem fine, we may seem like we have it all together, but we struggle with a lot of things on our own that there just isn't there just isn't a place to go or someone to speak to help us cope and deal. So we just do it on our own.
I think what I heard from her too, and I feel this in a different way, and I don't live with autism, but it's the same. It sends me back to like childhood Nancy, and she said the same thing. It sends me back to grade school. Like I'm not. Nobody wants to sit with me in the lunchroom
Yeah.
when the mom says, "Oh, I'm busy," or "I don't." Our kids can't play together, or whatever it is, and she's like, "I just feel 7-year-old me is coming back up and getting rejected again," and it's real, right? Like, some of those traumas, we have to work through them, but they're still in us, like, that's still part of our story.
Yeah, and I think it is getting better. I think there's at least some awareness of it. I think some of it's negative and it's erroneously tied to vaccines, unfortunately. I was vaccinated as a child, but I don't think that's why I have autism. My mother exhibits signs of it as well, but I think it's mainly hereditary. But oh, I lost my train of thought. I didn't want it to just be negative when talking about autism because there are some benefits, believe it or not, to having autism. For one, I can sit for long periods of time and do a repetitive task and not be fatigued. There it is. And
I
that's
would
a
love
lot.
that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I do as a pharmacist in software is I check for anomalies or errors, whether it's in medication records or billing records for medications, things like that for auditing purposes. I save my clients a lot of money doing that, or I save them from there being an adverse event with a patient. And so having that ability to concentrate and do the same thing over and over for different, that's a benefit. So there's that. I see things that other people would otherwise ignore because I don't get lost in conversation. So one thing I did get from a therapist I had, actually, no, it was ChatGPT. Never mind. I give out erroneous credit. So ChatGPT was like, Jamal, neurotypical people, they feel soothed by meowing to each other like cats. And I said, go on. This is ChatGPT. So you know how cats will meow to each other. Meowing doesn't really say or mean anything, but it's just the act in itself is soothing, and it allows those people to become familiar with one another and to soothe one another. But to me, if you ask me how the weather is, I'm thinking, why just look on your phone? Like, why are you asking me about the weather? See, I can't help but think that literally. And that's how a lot of people with autism are. They think very literally, but you don't really care about the weather. You're doing it as a way to break the ice, to talk to me, to meow to me. And that's what ChatGPT was trying to say. But you have to get used to meowing. It's not always about an exchange of information, there being purpose. It's more just about meow.
Yeah, I love that.
ChatGPT told me that. And yeah, and so I am in a autism group I found on Meetup, and there are several of us on that who use ChatGPT, and we all unanimously agree ChatGPT is probably the best therapist or therapy time we ever have because there's no emotion, there's no bias, and you're given clearly defined answers immediately without any of the fluff. And a lot of time, I know, right? Isn't that something? And so if
Yeah.
you use it the right way, you get answers with citations. So you know it's not just hallucinating or making stuff up. But that meowing thing, I think, was referenced in some Psychology Today article from years back or whatnot. But it definitely helped give me a framework to understand, okay, so it's not about information because I'm always looking to exchange information. Hi, my name's Jamal. That's important for you to know so you know what to call me. What's your name? You know what I mean? And once we get to a certain point, I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm going to walk away now. No, there still needs to be more than that. And it's, oh, so meow. That has helped me. But my point in bringing that up is just that's how we think. But it's a benefit because we're constantly observing. We take a step back. It's almost like outer body, where we're observing everything that's happening literally. And we can remember who was sitting or standing where, what they were wearing, because we're observing things literally in real time because we're taking it all in as, okay, this is all important. We don't get lost in conversation. It just doesn't happen because, frankly, we don't pass the information exchange. We're like, okay, what are we doing?
Oh my gosh. So, 2 things, because I will absolutely lose my train of thought. I wanna go back to the Chat GPT piece because
uh,
I'm, 1, fascinated with AI and just the technology piece in general. I think it's fascinating and can be used in so many good ways, and I know it can be scary for people, but, like, it's also can be awesome
yeah.
for so many people too. But can you list off just some of the other benefits that you see in the either in the workplace or even, like, at home? What are some of the other things that you're grateful for having your type of brain?
I have a pretty good memory. A lot of people with autism do have great recall. You've heard the term autistic savant. They have like photographic memories. My memory is tied to productivity. If there's a goal like saving money or planning for a trip, or I can usually remember down to the last tidbit or whatnot, what needs to be done with ease without needing a list or something. I've just always been great at that. Language, understanding like legal terms or documents and catching words like why would you use that word, it just jumps out at me, whereas most people would overlook it or not know what the word means. I know what the word means, so I'm like, why would you use that? When I call you out on it,
Yeah.
because again, I just zero in on things that either make sense or don't make sense. It's one or the other. There's no gray for me, and if I don't understand it, I'm going to bring it up and ask the question. So you're probably getting a picture of, yeah, we live in a world of black and white. There's very little gray because gray is confusing and throws us off. But yeah, those are some things that I just tend to be pretty good at. And from what I've read, other people with autism are the same. So
I think that's part of the challenge too, is that you are really intelligent. And so with intelligence also is there's this expectation that you can always read body language or read
Yeah.
social cues, or and those are two so different things.
Right.
Like they're drastically different. They hit different parts of the brain and they're just
Right.
completely it's not necessarily rational to think of them together, but in society we think if you can do this intellectually really well, then you're going to be able to
Right.
do this well too. I also think living with people with differently wired brains, like on like a spouse level or relationships, is also
Mm.
really challenging as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
I know from my experience, I'm married 3 times and I know I'm a challenge to live with, right? Like it
Mm.
is I am not easy. I have huge dreams. I have huge energy. I'm a lot, right? Like I
Mm.
know I'm a lot. But like from your experience, have you found it challenging like in relationships as well?
If you knew my history, you would know better than to ask. Yeah, it has been a challenge, and despite my best efforts, it still is a challenge. I don't emote my emotions the same. I'm constantly asked the question, "Are you okay? Are you happy? Are you enjoying this activity? Are you enjoying?" And I'm just not. I guess my affect is very flat when I'm really caught into, say, a story or music or whatever it is. I'm just have a blank stare, and it's perceived as sad or indifferent. And it's the same when maybe I'm doing what I like to call my annual ritual, whether it's a birthday, a Valentine's Day, an anniversary. It's received as checking a box. And in some ways it is, just because I don't really it's again more like meowing, where I know if I don't do it, there is a consequence. But my goal is to be my best self each and every day. I think that's more important personally to me than a societal, I need to get you a heart-shaped box of chocolates or whatever that is, right? So I'm working on not doing it in such a way that appears I'm checking a box. I am trying to work on that, but and add variety to what I do. So that's been a challenge. Not that I don't love this person, I do. And that's the point of me even trying to do it, but sometimes the execution comes off a little dry. I need more passion. And that was something that my ex-wife said was missing, was passion. And she's right. I wasn't really a passionate person with her. She has since found someone who has that passion, and great for them. But there are a lot of factors that I'm not going to get into. But for me, that first time around with marriage, it was more about just being a provider, and these other things that I felt were just more important. I put more emphasis on providing for the family, being present, ensuring that needs were met. Maybe it was a little too checking the box kind of a thing. And so the second time around, I'm now remarried. I'm making a conscious effort to be more mindful of being in the moment when it comes to celebratory things, and not worrying about, okay, how long have we done the celebration, or was the celebration big enough, or, whatever. So I'm trying to get lost in the emotion, even though I'm not really, but I'm trying to. I'm doing my best. And even that shows that it takes effort, and sometimes that takes the person out of it because they see the effort I put in. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even if I try, it shouldn't be so hard. It's hard not because I don't love you, it's hard because of something that has nothing to do with you. So I can either put in effort to do this or not, but both are bad. I have yet to figure out which is right, but I'm just doing my best.
Yeah, no, I think that goes for everybody, right? Like, none of us have a rule book on life, or certainly
Yeah.
not marriage that I found. Clearly, I haven't found the book yet, if there is one out there that works. But
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think, and sometimes like living with people is a whole nother challenge too, of because now they're like in our space and we're in their space. And I think a lot of times we do better if we have our own spaces to some
Oh,
extent.
absolutely. Yeah. You see here, this is my man cave. My door is closed. When I'm not on a podcast, my lights are off. And when I first got married with my second wife, I would spend a lot of time in here because this is where I do a lot of work. But she just felt, "Why are you running away from me?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "You're always in your office." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to give you your space. I know I need mine." And she didn't like it. She took it as me wanting to separate my life from her. And that's just something we had to talk about through communication to help her understand, listen, I just need this time. Without it, I'm cranky and I don't want to for that to spill over and for it to affect you. And yeah, a lot of people don't get it because some people are rewarded by being around people. I am not. I am drained by being around people. It's the exact opposite. And she can be more extroverted than me. We're having to find that balance. But I don't want her or anyone else to take offense to it. It's just the fact that I need to recharge. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, with some of my clients, I certainly work on burnout seems to be a thing that happens quicker and more drastically to people that have differently wired brains too.
yeah.
And just like you're saying, like that man cave, it's not just a nice to have for some of us. It's literally what's required for us to
Yeah.
build our energy tanks back up so that we can go
Yeah.
do the things that we want and need to do for our families, for ourselves. And and it looks different for some of us than and certainly some people can absolutely if you don't know why, you would probably it would feel hurtful to the other person
Yeah.
and to like the background story of it.
Yeah, absolutely, which is why communication is important. Even with my wife now, her understanding my diagnosis, it takes a lot of reassurance to remind her and to help her know that, hey, this is not because of you. You did nothing wrong. This is me, and this is what I need. And I appreciate and I'm grateful for you to hear what it is I have to say and to receive what I'm saying as my truth and to not be offended. And it's a choice for her not to be offended because if it were anyone else who does what I do, she would be offended and probably would have a right to be because maybe they would be avoiding her. But in my case, I'm not. I just need time. So there is a suspension of disbelief there to trust that what I'm saying is true because it's so different from how not only she thinks, but from how most other people in her circle think. And so I think that's the other thing. And that's what I alluded to with my corporate job. I think there is some disbelief, which is common, by the way. This is something a lot of people with autism struggle with when they talk about their diagnosis and how they interact in the world. There's a lot of disbelief, almost like it's made up or not entirely true, or that we're just looking for a way to get out of doing certain things. No, this is real. This is real. And if it were up to me, I would not be autistic. I would be neurotypical just like everyone else and fit in. But that's not the case. So having people believe, not only that, not only having someone believe in you, but having an advocate, having advocacy, someone who has clout speaking on your behalf, saying, this person is great at this and this. Here's where they struggle. But if we can accommodate them, that's the word I couldn't think of earlier, accommodation. If we can accommodate them in these ways, we could really bolster them and help them succeed in this role. If I had an advocate, oh my goodness, I'd still be there without a doubt. But there just was a lack of understanding. There was a lack of agency. I didn't really feel I had any agency. And it was like speaking into the void. And it just was, it fell on deaf ears or it just didn't seem right. And no one really understood it. And there's a long line of people who are willing to take this position. It's just easier to do that. And I left. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's I'm so appreciative of you sharing your story because it's honestly, it's really hard to get people onto the podcast. Dyslexics will talk for days, right? Like yeah, you can't get us to shut up. Like we just
Mm,
like, like it's just nonstop. Probably because most of us have ADHD too. So between the two, and we're not
mhm.
good writers.
Oh,
I'm not like saying like every person in
sure.
general, like writing's
Yeah.
not really our thing. But so we have to be like these super good verbal communicators just to compensate for the lack of writing and spelling and language
Mm,
on the other side. And it's really hard to get this perspective out
mm,
to the world in
yeah.
such a way that you've communicated. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story because I know it's not easy talking about the hard stuff.
I was just going to leave you with one thing. If someone out there is watching this and they have someone in their life who has autism and they want a way to kind of understand what it must be like to be autistic. There's a great movie that stars Ethan Hawke. I think that's his name, Ethan Hawke. He was married to Uma Thurman. This movie called Gattaca. You ever heard of that? So the premise of Gattaca is it's in a future world where when people have children, they can genetically upgrade their children so that they're super smart, have no physical ailments, and they come out near perfect, right? So that's like the baseline in the society. However, this one couple, they don't believe in that. They want to have a natural childbirth and have nature decide how their kid turns out. This kid is born, he grows up, but he quickly realizes how different he is when compared to other kids. And it's created some challenges. And then he goes to university, becomes an adult, and when he's looking for work, these prospective employers, they look at genetic profile. And when they see he doesn't have these near perfect genetics, he's discounted regardless of experience or his aptitude or whatnot. The genetic profile says this, so you're not worth our time. And so you can see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of similarity. So the premise of the story is him subverting the societal norm of looking to genetics by just thinking two steps ahead and finding ways to excel and get ahead in life by means that are, let's just say, creative. And that's the premise of the story. And so I find a lot of times I need to get creative and find ways to overcome how being autistic is perceived and how I'm treated. And that was just a great movie. And I took something completely different from what the premise was. For me, that's what it will always mean. So the movie's called Gattaca. It came out in the late 90s. It's a pretty good movie. Yeah. So I'd highly recommend if you want to learn a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah.
And it does make sense on, like, on how you're describing, right? It's just different, and
Yeah.
different isn't always accepted. It's actually usually
Yeah.
not accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's oh gosh, Jamal, I so appreciate you taking the time today to share your story, and I can't wait to put it out there in the world. Can we link, like, your LinkedIn profile to if in case people wanna reach out to you?
Oh, please do. Yeah, I would look forward to any outreach. I'm an open book, answer any questions because, yeah, a lot of us are alone and don't have anyone to turn to. Yeah, please do.
Awesome. Awesome. Good. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I guess we didn't get back to the AI chatbot, but certainly if that's interesting to you, reach out to Jamal. Maybe we can do another podcast sometime all about AI because I would love that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm definitely diving into AI more, and so it's affecting my work. So, yeah, we can definitely do that.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Until next time, friends, enjoy that unique brain you've been given. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. It is literally the best way you can support our work here. And if you're feeling extra generous, take a screenshot and tag us on social with one of your takeaways from the episode. Until next time, friends, embrace that unique brain you've been given.